Should any new carbon pricing legislation be put to a referendum first?
Yeah, I'm neither here nor there on that. As long as there's a plan to do something with the revenue, I think that justifies it a little bit more.
There are certain issues that I think a referendum is necessary and important. Broad, sweeping changes. The carbon tax, I don't know, reaches that level of impact necessary to require a referendum. It seems like if you establish a referendum for a carbon tax, then it almost sets a precedent that any tax increase should require a referendum, which leads you to a point that you have referendums so often it defeats the point of the representatives. It doesn't defeat the point of representatives, but you get the point of repeated referendums over and over and over and over and over again. We elect representatives to serve our interests, and we should trust them to do so, and we should trust them to act in our best interests.
No, I don't think so. I'm not a big believer in referendums. I think politicians should be are elected, and they should be able to do their job based on those election results. When you always have to go back doing referendums for every political move you want to make, it could really slow things down. So I'd say no.
I think that really the responsibility is with large corporations. I think that the individual person has much less of an impact than large corporations, businesses that are responsible for a lot of emissions. So I think that that would be tricky.
Yeah, referendums are tricky. I agree. I don't know if that's the way to go about it. I think you put these issues front and center when it comes to elections, whether it's municipal, provincial, and federal. Let voters make their decision at the polls at that point in terms of the way we want to go when it comes to carbon tax. I don't think a referendum is the right avenue to take there.
Well, I think the biggest referendum of all is an election. So I'm sure that I know that the major political parties right now have taken a position on that. And I think that'll be a significant issue for the next election.
Yes, to my understanding, I feel like the community should be involved in just levels of taxation and the percentages of everything. I don't think it should be behind closed doors.
Discourse is good. It's always good to be democratic about things, and the more opinions, the better. You get a bigger pool of opinion, you have more information to draw on.
I think a referendum might be useful. I feel like carbon tax should be higher for companies like industrial factories. I think that would be more helpful than taxing individual people, but I don't think carbon tax is a bad thing overall. So referendum is a good idea, I believe. Yeah.
Well, they could. I don't know what sort of result they'd get, because I think people are so polarized around that.
I guess that's every government's decision, and you got to vote them in or you vote them out. That's democracy.
Yeah, I think that would be great if we all had a voice in it. Isn't that what democracy is,
we know clearly what the policies of both parties are, so when the federal election happens, you'll know if you're voting for the Liberals or the Tories or any of the mushy middle, which side they're on. So I would think we can't start having referendums about every decision about taxation in this country. That's how we get into a quagmire like we see in the U.S.
I just see waste of time, honestly. I think if we're going to get a carbon pricing regulation, a new one come in, then why don't we just, listen to what people are saying during the election, elect somebody, and pray on the 10% chance that they'll actually follow through with what they say.
I think that's unrealistic as well. The average person doesn't have enough information to be able to adequately define what would be the larger impact for every piece of legislation. Now, should some of them be up for referendum? Absolutely, but as it stands right now, to have every piece of legislation would grind the system to a halt.
Well, I think we're the only ones in North America that are paying a carbon tax right now, and we're less than 10% of the population, so we're not making a difference. China puts on a new coal plant every week, and India as well, and they're not paying any carbon tax, so we shouldn't be paying carbon tax, and yes, there should be a referendum.
My wish is for better advisors, more science, and more realistic plans. But I don't know if that's wishful thinking, but I really think that the people who are elected need to make those decisions based on what we're asking for, and not do a referendum.
Well, of course, more opinions are lot better, I think, and that's what what you're getting when you put them, bring them out front and discuss them and talk about them,
Well, I think that's the role of leaders, to be able to anticipate the future and the impact of a lot of what we're doing unthinkingly, because we're more concerned with the now rather than anticipating what's going to be happening 10, 15 years from now. That is really the role of leaders, and I'm all for leaders taking on that role, as long as it's done reasonably and responsibly, and and not just out of whack with what is possible in terms of financial ability and capacity.